child sex offender, dressed up like a girl, you know, that was probably not the best thing you could do, and we're sorry. That was great. They nailed it.
Soy boy cloys, 110% organic, non-GMO, identitarian.
1 second, Dustin.
And there's no need for anyone to think that is unacceptable. We're going to shut them down and work with whoever it is to shut them down, and they can be prosecuted.
What's up, dude?
You cannot intimidate members of Congress.
All right. It's like a PBS after school special late at night. Okay. All right. Okay. Why does it keep coming in twice? Oh, maybe here. What's up, dude? Can you hear me? That's because it's monitoring now. I don't know if people hear.
I was told by my handler, don't talk on this because I will shove my foot in my mouth. Just don't do that. Just
Can you hear me, dude?
move on. It's dumb. How could you even think that just
Can you hear me?
I was in charge of policy with the Ukraine as vice president? Just because I actually told the government that if they didn't fire the prosecutor that was looking into the company that my son was involved in, and he was getting paid $50,000 a year, and he didn't know jack diddly dick about this job. How could you think for a minute that was inappropriate or that I did anything wrong? Even though I sat and I bragged about the fact I got this guy.
Can you hear me, Dustin? Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself? Can you unmute yourself, dude? Are you unmuted?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. You hear me?
Yeah, it's my mic. I don't even have my studio set up, but I haven't.
No, it sounds good. You sound good.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you good. It's good, man.
I don't have my old set. I don't have my old set where I am right now.
Okay. All right.
It's all right. We'll be okay.
We'll totally be fine, man. It's all good.
I'm locked in my bedroom, and lot of stuff has happened, Steve, in the last several months, including a fucking divorce. So there you go.
Oh, wait, hang on a second, dude. We're I should have told you that. Well, we're live, so I don't know if that should have went out over the stream.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
That's terrible. We'll talk about that later.
Are we really live?
We really are. I'm pretty sure. Luckily, we didn't have a ton of people on there. I probably should have told you that. We're not. Our vocals are live. Our vocals. Oh shit! Sorry about that,
Hey,
dude.
That's all right. I'll even talk about it. side effects of COVID, man.
Oh man, that really.
Oh yeah. I just turned on the YouTube. I can see it.
Yeah, shit.
Rebel Jack.
Oh Jesus. Hang on a second here. Let me pull this down. So. Yeah, Shelly Green just said. Sorry for your divorce. Oh,
I know. Most people would respond like, "Well, fuck it, I don't care." No, man, it's really sad actually. So.
Yeah, that really sucks, dude. Yeah, I don't know what to say. We're live. I'll have to say more, and we're not. Talk to you a little more about it. Let me go back into studio mode here. We got a minute 30. See if I can get your camera set up. Switch over to
shopping center. Killing at least. There's an issue of public corruption in New York State. There's an issue of corruption in New York State. Is that right?
And then I'm going to close my chat window.
Snapchat has stepped on the social justice warriors' ding dongs or peanuts or.
Forget how to close the chat window on the side.
Apparently, Snapchat's new gender swap filter is causing problems with social justice warriors.
So have you been doing a lot of shows?
No, not really. I've just actually been getting back on the horse, trying to do that. You know?
I know religion. I was raised in the church. I went to Bible college. My degrees in theology. I know religion.
Well, I got a lot of interesting road stories. So talk about that.
Here, one thing I can do is as soon as this thing starts.
Well, this is the first show I've been on since when we unfortunately had to fold Doug's show.
Yeah.
And the similarities I see between
We will transition over here to this. Open this up. And okay. So guys, real quickly before we start this next, stick around for this video. This video is going to be kind of a theme of tonight and our stream, and I'm working out a few things on the back end, but sit back and listen to this. It's very important, and it's going to be very enlightening. So watch this video, and we're going to start after this with our special guest, Dustin Gold. So we'll see you in a few minutes.
Mr. Jones owned a cotton plantation and many slaves. One day he was talking to the owner of the plantation next to his, and Mr. Jones was lamenting the fact that times were tough. He was having to work his slaves harder than ever, and was having trouble with some of them being disobedient or trying to run away. The other plantation owner said he knew someone who could help.
Day 1.
One day Mr. Jones called his slaves together so a man named Mr. Smith could talk to them. Before beginning, Mr. Smith whispered to Mr. Jones, "Whatever I say, do not contradict me or interfere, and I promise you your slave troubles will end." "My name is Mr. Smith," he said to the slaves, "and this may be the happiest day of your lives. From today forward, you will no longer be slaves, but free men." Mr. Jones was so shocked he started to step forward, but Mr. Smith gestured for him to remain silent. He did, only because the other plantation owner had spoken so highly of Mr. Smith's skills. "You are no longer the property of Mr. Jones," Mr. Smith continued. "You are free. No more would you be forced to labor for the benefit of Mr. Jones. Now you can work for yourselves." Now the slaves were all murmuring and looking at each other. Many were smiling, many were looking puzzled. "In fact, you are now free to leave the plantation whenever you want," Mr. Smith said. "However, since we are surrounded by other plantations, if you leave, some other plantation owner will likely claim you as his own the moment you set foot on his property. So I urge you not to risk your newfound freedom by doing something so foolish. Instead, I suggest that you stay here, no longer as slaves, but as willing participants and part owners of this plantation. Yes, this is now your plantation." Mr. Jones bit his tongue to keep from objecting. "For now, we might as well leave Mr. Jones in charge," said Mr. Smith, "since he is the only one with any experience at running a plantation, which is quite a complicated thing to manage. But he will no longer be your master, but just another worker on the plantation. In fact, he will now be using his organizational and management skills to serve you. Whatever problems you may have had with him before, you are now all equals. and you need each other to make this work. If we all cooperate and work together, we can all reap the benefits together. In honor of this happy occasion, I present you this new symbol of togetherness and cooperation, this flag, which shall be the emblem of the new free Jones plantation. He held up the new flag, but most of those listening were still too amazed to respond. And this shall be our motto, Mr. Smith announced. We work together as free men for our mutual benefit, pledging our allegiance to the Jones plantation, which stands for prosperity, liberty, and justice for all. To celebrate, everyone has the rest of the day off. Enjoy your freedom, do as you please, and be back here tomorrow morning, bright and early, so that we may begin work on this great and noble new endeavor as equal free men. Finally convinced that Mr. Smith was serious, the former slaves applauded and cheered.
Day 2.
We all want this plantation to do well, Mr. Smith said at the beginning of the next meeting, so we can all share in the benefits. We all know that it takes a lot of effort to make a cotton plantation work. Just because you're all free doesn't mean you can stop working. In fact, since you're now working for yourselves,
Can you hear that, Dustin?
I expect you to work even harder than ever before.
Yes.
But now with pride and joy, knowing that you're working for yourselves. Of course, there still have to be rules. If everyone just does whatever he wants, the plantation won't produce anything. This experiment will fail and we'll all starve. You should be thankful that Mr. Jones has agreed to stay on to lend his knowledge and skills to this endeavor, and I trust you will all do your own part to make this work. Several of you have been chosen to act as project supervisors to manage different aspects of the operation, to make sure everyone is doing his assigned job, to make sure that the rules are followed, and so on. The rest of you may head out to the fields to start your first day of work as free men.
Day 3.
The next morning, Mr. Smith had a grim expression on his face as the daily meeting began. I have an unpleasant duty to do today, he said. Yesterday, Charles was caught keeping some of the cotton he picked, presumably to sell for his own personal profit. That is against the rules. That is stealing. For that, Charles must be punished. 2 men tied Charles to the whipping post. I take no joy in this, Mr. Smith continued, but you must understand, if we do not maintain order, if we do not have rules that we all abide by, then the plantation will fail, and we will all suffer. The whip cracked against Charles' back. But if we all pitch in for the common good, then we can all prosper. Being free doesn't mean you should be selfish and greedy. We must each do our assigned duties and obey the rules, and then we can all benefit, and each of you will receive your appropriate share of the profits. A young man named Samuel stepped forward. But if you and Mr. Jones decide the rules and whip us if we disobey, how is that any different from what we had before? How can you say that? Mr. Smith asked. I'm shocked. You were a slave before, and now you're free. Things still need to be managed and organized by those best qualified to do so. Do you know how to run a plantation, Samuel? Well, no, he answered. But if we're free, why do we get no say in what the rules are and how things work? I'm surprised at your ingratitude, Mr. Smith answered. None of you know how a plantation is run, so you're in no position to be making decisions about how things are done here. You don't seem to appreciate all the things that Mr. Jones provides for you, from protecting you from all the outside threats you know nothing about, those who would come here, capture and enslave you, if not for Mr. Jones' protection, to making sure that you all have food and housing, tools to work with, that you're cared for when sick and injured, and so on. There wouldn't be a plantation at all, no cotton to pick, no land to plant and harvest, if not for him. You should be grateful that he's made possible the level of comfort you now have. Your lives would be far worse if not for him. Nevertheless, as free and equal participants in this endeavor, from now on at each meeting, any worker may have 2 minutes to ask questions or voice suggestions or complaints. With that, the workers all seemed satisfied and headed out again to the fields to pick the cotton.
Day 4.
I have a big announcement, Mr. Smith said as the daily meeting began. Mr. Jones' cousin is here, and not just to visit and see how our project is coming along. It has been decided that from now on, you will be deciding who will manage the plantation. Of course, this job can't be done by just anyone, but every 3 months we will have a special meeting at which all the workers will vote on whether we think Mr. Jones should run the plantation or whether we think his cousin, Mr. Johnson, should run the plantation. That means that ultimately you are in charge because you will be deciding which man you want running things on your behalf. If you don't like the way things are being managed, you now have the power to change it. Amazed and pleased, the workers headed out again to the fields to pick the cotton. Days passed, months passed, a year passed, and the plantation continued to operate as before. Sometimes Mr. Jones was in charge, sometimes Mr. Johnson was in charge, but the day-to-day routine stayed exactly the same. The workers worked hard, long hours every day, and still had little to show for it. Every day the meeting would begin with them all reciting the Jones Plantation motto, "We work together as free men for our mutual benefit, pledging our allegiance to the Jones Plantation, which stands for prosperity, liberty, and justice for all." One day Mr. Smith announced, "Samuel is asked to say a few words this morning, and whatever the rest of us may think of his ideas and opinions, we are all free here, and that means we are all allowed to speak our minds. So, Samuel, you have 2 minutes. Begin." Samuel stepped forward, looking scared. "I was excited when all this started," he began, glancing nervously at Mr. Smith and Mr. Jones. "But don't you all see what's happened here? Nothing's changed. We're all still slaves." There were grumbles of disagreement from the crowd. "They tell us what to do and whip us if we don't. They still make all the rules and punish us if we disobey. They let us make suggestions and complain about things, but they never really change anything.
Sound
They
familiar?
let us choose between Mr. Jones and Mr. Johnson, but what's the difference? The situation stays the same. We do all of the work and they take as much as they want and decide how much they'll let us keep. They live in luxury, made rich by the cotton we pick. We do all the work and have to build our own huts, grow our own food, and take care of ourselves. They leave us just enough that we don't revolt or run away. This is not freedom. We're all still slaves. They've only changed the words they use, but nothing else has changed. They say we're all free and equal, but we're not. They command and we obey. That's not freedom. That's not equality. They say we're free to leave, but all that means is that we're free to be someone else's slave. Why should we work or obey the rules? We didn't agree to this. They made the system. They forced it on us. They control and rob us and call it freedom. They've deceived you into thinking that being able to choose which slave master you'll work for is the same as being free. It's not. Open your eyes. If you keep what you produce, they call it stealing. When they take what you produce, they call it sharing and fair distribution. Can't you see that this is all? Your time is up, Samuel, Mr. Smith announced calmly. At his gesture, 2 supervisors grabbed Samuel by the arms and led him to the whipping post. I'm sorry, Samuel, but you've broken the rules. There are rules against encouraging others not to work and encouraging others to break the rules. You're only hurting all of us with your discontentment and your complaining and your disobedience.
Wow.
The whip fell and Samuel let out a grunt. Without rules, without order, all would be lost. Without law, there would be chaos. We can't just behave as wild animals, each doing whatever he pleases. We must all follow the plan and all do our duty for the betterment of everyone. And those who do not must be punished. The whip fell again and blood flowed freely from Samuel's back. Samuel, it is you who are stealing from the others. When you don't do your assigned work, you are making more work for others. When you disobey the rules, it is you who are endangering the future of everyone else here.
When you don't wear your mask?
You are the thief. You are the criminal. You are the one trying to destroy the arrangement that keeps us all safe and prosperous. At every lash of the whip, the other workers cheered louder and louder, some yelling curses at Samuel. Being spoiled and selfish, you complain about everything, talking as if you're oppressed. But you are the one ruining things. You are the one keeping us from being all we could be. It is your greed and your rebelliousness that is hurting all of us. They all play by the rules, Mr. Smith said, gesturing at the others. What makes you think that you don't have to? You think you're above the law? There were loud yells of agreement as the whip fell again. We must maintain order, Mr. Smith proclaimed, to make this plantation great, to make it so that we can all be happy and prosperous. To have the society we want, there have to be rules. We all have to contribute our fair share to this great endeavor, and we cannot tolerate actions and attitudes that seek to undermine the amazing things that together as free men we have achieved and will continue to achieve. Mr. Jones was smiling as he gave Mr. Smith a pat on the back. The crowd was cheering so loudly that none of them had noticed that Samuel had died.
And
What you have been taught
let me
about government and politics is no more accurate or reasonable than what Mr. Smith taught the slaves. If you're ready to look through the veil of rhetoric and propaganda to see the reality beneath, get a copy of The Most Dangerous Superstition. It will change the way you see the world.
Just a nice little
I
habit.
gotta put that-
You better put that mask on, dude. I don't want to see any of that COVID crap, man, around here. How you doing, dude? I'm gonna adjust your. I think we kind of know how you're doing, all of us. No, the few that were in here in the beginning.
Man.
Oh, dude, I should have definitely told you we're live before you.
Well, that's all right. Look, I mean, this is the first show I've gone on, and God, when did all this start? In March?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at the time, I was producing the Douglas Ducote show.
Yeah.
For a year, we were building that up, and unfortunately, due to COVID, I just didn't think the business model side of things was conducive in the COVID environment. So we had to sadly shut that down. I know Doug is still doing stuff, and then unfortunately and sadly for him and his family, shortly thereafter they got hit with several hurricanes in the Lake Charles, Louisiana area. That God, it's so sad what he's going through. I texted with his wife the other day. So anyway, that's what COVID did to that, and I just I was put in a position where the photography business I had with my wife, I knew that was going to shut down quickly, even here in the state of Tennessee as the lockdowns were coming. And I said, holy crap, what are we going to do? And the government starts deeming people essential and non-essential. And I said, oh God, we're in a lot of trouble. So I started applying for, everything essential. And I've been out on the road doing Instacart grocery deliveries and DoorDash fast food deliveries for the last 8 months, basically 14 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Wow.
Staying in tune to politics and on text chains with people like yourself and Maria Albanese and Timothy Shea and Mike Moore from True Pundit and Chrissy Piccolo, who was co-producing with Doug, and staying in tune to what's going on, and then listening to the controlled conservative talk radio along the way to see what they were feeding us. So I've been in tune, but I looked at it as a blessing because I like talking to people. I like ground intel. And I've been in and out of grocery stores and restaurants the whole time, talking to grocery managers about supply chains. And talking to restaurant owners about what the tyrants in the health departments were doing to them. So, it was a blessing. And the whole idea was to not dip into savings and not go into debt. And, for that, it's a blessing, even though I'm working for the tech tyrants over at Instacart. So,
that is, you have been crazy. I don't know if a lot of my audience knows you from the your Douglas Ducote days. I mean, and you were a lot in the backgrounds there, but tell them a little bit about your past before we get into present, Dustin, which there's been a bit of a transformation in this last year with how you view stuff. And this is going to be a colorful, we are on YouTube, but I'm shifting people out over onto DLive. So I guess be a little cognizant of that on the YouTube side, but I'm not censoring you, and I don't care what your viewpoints are. I mean, don't censor those.
No.
You can say what you want, but give a background, and then we'll get into where you are now.
I'll just give you a quick back. I'm originally from Connecticut. I went to college in Philadelphia, and I ended up owning a small marketing firm in Connecticut. And back in 2007, I was listening to local talk radio, and this guy, Ted Pajinski, who has since passed away, was on there talking about the tyrannical mayor at the time of New Haven, Connecticut, named John DeStefano, who was the first in the nation mayor to give illegal aliens ID cards. And something drew me to this old guy. I hadn't really been into politics, except I followed stuff after 9/11 occurred when I was in college. So I go down to VFW, go to this meeting. There's a group called Southern Connecticut Immigration Reform, and there was a few hundred people, and they were going to fight this mayor. And something drew me into it. And the next thing you know, within a few weeks, I had on a suit, and I was having meetings at my office, turned my marketing office into basically headquarters, started doing radio there all the time, fighting the mayor, hooked up with think tanks in DC, including, a lot of people know, Judicial Watch, FAIR, Federation for American Immigration Reform, CIS, Center for Immigration Studies, and EARLY, which was Immigration Reform Law Institute. And we started filing lawsuits in the city of New Haven. And then we were basically pre-James O'Keefe and Project Veritas. We were doing stuff similar to that. So we would go in and do undercover investigations. And then we would go do this all on the local conservative talk radio. And I did that for like 2 years, you know, all on my own dime, basically destroyed my business because I had a lot of liberal clients. You know, I wasn't even really into politics. It was, I got drew to fighting corruption.
Yeah.
And so I did that until 2009. And at the time, the Tea Party started rising out of what was once all these anti-illegal immigration groups. There was the Minutemen down at the border. Lou Dobbs used to be on CNN, and he was covering it every single night. So then Obama got elected, and I said, you know, I grew this organization in like a couple of years to 1,300 people in Connecticut. I mean, real people. We had real meetings. We did flyer drops at black churches. This was before people were using Facebook and Twitter as the main way to communicate. And actually, it was much more effective in person. And so then when Obama got elected, I said to my people, I got to go back to my real life. And you guys should probably go towards the Tea Party route if you want to continue to be active in politics. So then I went on later to start it was an entertainment company where I was developing and managing political impersonators. And we did shows for everyone from LinkedIn to Microsoft for sales meetings. And it was a way for me to stay engaged in politics, but make fun of the whole system and make a living off of it. Right. And we ended up working inside all kinds of political campaigns on all kinds of crazy projects. I learned all about different corporations and industries and associations. So it was a really good 7-8 years I was in that. And then I eventually got married and kind of slowed that business down. And then got back into it when I was doing stuff with a guy named Halsey English, and then eventually with Douglas Ducote. And then, like I said, with COVID, I kind of had to roll back a little bit, but I'm in discussions with some different people now and maybe getting involved with some new projects. We were all waiting for the election to happen to see where we were going to go from here and what direction COVID was going to take. So that's how I got involved with all this stuff. And I will say in 2016, 2015, I was a big supporter of Donald Trump. I went to 13 rallies. I used to go dressed up as Trump and do man on the street interviews.
I know you do so good at Trump.
I went to the inauguration with my wife for my birthday on January 19th. I went to the Deplorable, which was at the National Press Club. I went to the Gays for Trump Deplorable, which was at the William Bulger Center, and gave Trump money, campaigned, did all that stuff. And then slowly, about 3 months into the presidency, started becoming a little disenfranchised, but I bit my tongue for a while.
Mm-hmm. Jesus. Yeah, well, you didn't bite it for that long. I don't know how long it's been.
Well, look. Hey, look.
Where are you at right now? Where are you at on the pendulum swing? Because I know right when the COVID stuff hit, the pendulum was peaking on from one side to the other. How are you feeling right now?
Well, look. I will say that my main issue has always been illegal immigration, and not. I mean, I look at illegal immigration as demographic warfare, and over the years, we've had to hear from both sides, always fighting, the WWE wrestling show of which you just showed in that cartoon.
Yeah.
But it was always the Republicans saying that the Democrats wanted illegals for votes. And it was always the Democrats saying that the Republicans wanted the illegals for cheap labor. And I've always said for 15 years, back when I was doing my thing, giving speeches, it wasn't about that at all. That was an added bonus. But it was about demographic warfare. You're moving people in from other countries that are based in Marxism, socialism, communism into the United States, and then telling them they don't have to assimilate, telling businesses they aren't going to get in trouble for using them as slave labor, and then pushing for higher minimum wage, but then undercutting that very minimum wage with slave labor that will work for cheaper. So it was about demographic warfare, and we saw it take place in Virginia. A lot of that came out during the Virginia 2A rally that we covered on the Douglas Ducote show.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of what happened in Virginia is you had what was once a red state. Then you had federal workers live there like crazy, and they're all liberals. And then you had a shift of immigration, illegal immigration that shifted that state. And then we're seeing that happen all over the country. Now, if you just take the numbers at face value that you have today and you say, well, Biden's up by 1,000, like we're supposed to believe that the election is 50-50 and it's going to come down
Yeah.
to like one vote. Well, let's say we can't prove fraud and that's the case. Well, that shows you what happened. They used demographic warfare to destroy the culture of this country. And as far as Trump goes, look, we all know what he stood for in 2016. We know what he campaigned on. I immediately saw him cave on the wall and immigration issues himself. He negotiated himself out of the money he wanted. And I immediately started to say, this is bullshit. We're back to the same old fraudsters that we've always had. You could say that Trump now is last month has been fighting back against COVID, but he allowed all this to occur.
Yeah, yeah.
So I did not, this is the first election I did not vote in my life. I refused to do it.
Yeah.
I said it proved to me with Donald Trump once and for all that it's all a game. It's all a farce. It's a WWE wrestling match, and I'm not going to take part in it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel very much the same way as you. In a lot of my audience knows my story that in 2016, I couldn't believe Donald Trump got elected. And it was just hilarious to me. Right. But then I warmed up to him and I was like, well, maybe he really is. And so I got on the train of pushing his points and, defending him. And really a lot of my content's always been about the cultural, kind of what you're talking about, the cultural warfare of the Marxism and the intersectionality and the cultural Marxism and postmodernism, that kind of stuff. That's really what got me into doing my channel in the first place, was because I think we all know, as Breitbart said, that, really politics is downstream of culture. And so my whole thing was always like, politics is just a joke anyways. But then when Donald Trump came out swinging for the fence and he was hitting at these people and he didn't give a shit about being politically correct, and he came in, and even though his speech was hilarious at times, I'm like, how do people take him serious? He repeats himself 10 times. And I did realize later, I think the reason why he repeats himself so much was because they were always trying to soundbite him and get him out of context. So I almost feel like that's his way of kind of insulating himself to make sure the message he's trying to get across can't get twisted, You
bookend the main point with the main point.
Yeah, exactly. But then through the COVID stuff, as when we got on our text thread with our friends offline and all that, and I was in the beginning, I was one going, I don't know about this. I think we all in the first month, a few weeks, we didn't know, okay, is this the big one that they released to just wipe everybody out? Like, we were all a little like, I was a little apprehensive, like, oh, maybe this is bad. I don't know what this is, like I knew I always knew from the beginning that it was some sort of a psyop. It was some sort of a intentionally released. I never from the moment that it came from some bat, right? But then as the information started coming out, I'm like, that's where I started to part and have my problems with, with Trump too, and my audience knows. It's like, why in the F is he pushing this vaccine? Why in the F does he have Fauci around him and Birx around him? And why is he praising Bill Gates? And why is he licking the balls of the CDC? And why is he, and the WHO, and all of these things? It was just making me more and more and more. And then he comes out in the beginning and says, oh, it's no big deal. We'll be over in a month. We'll be fine. And then a month later, he's like, this is really bad. And I'm like, that's the part where, like, and we know, you and I talked about this, where it just didn't match up. It just didn't match up to what originally. And I know there's a lot of reasons out there. People say it's like, well, he had everyone against him. He was trying to play the game. It was for political reasons. Like I said last night and the night before, I think those political reasons of him trying to walk the fence has put us in the position now that he's in, where he didn't go hard at them and stand his ground and really drain the swamp that he kept saying he was going to drain. And now the swamp has come for him. If you want to believe that he really is a victim, I know you think. I won't say what you think. You tell me how you think on this, and you don't have to hold back. You can let go if you need to, man. You can.
Look, I just want to look. I want to say this. To me, he was our last best hope, right? In what everyone wanted to do over the years, restore America. And he said the right things, even though when he campaigned, some of the stuff I thought he was actually weak on, even though he said it in a tough tone. But when we are supposed to believe, and our side believes, the deep state, the bureaucratic state, the CIA, the shadow government, the military-industrial complex, the police state, the technocrats, Silicon Valley, that they control everything, then ask yourself how that guy beat 16 other Republicans, and except Ben Carson, all of them were career politicians, and then goes up against the most powerful politician in America at the time, Hillary Clinton, who is coughing and gagging and falling on the ground and literally takes a dive for him. And we're supposed to believe that he just beat her because, oh, the votes were so overwhelming. Well, he lost the popular vote according to the numbers. But at the same time, we believe the technocrats and the deep state control everything, yet we don't believe that the actual election results are controlled. So you have to be realistic. Now that we saw 4 years in context, we can then say to ourselves, no, I can't run for president and magically win because I got people to vote for me. It just doesn't work that way this time in America. And who tells you who wins in the end? The very media that we all call fake news. They're the ones who say this person won, that person won. So if you go back and look at when they put John McCain up against Barack Obama, John McCain should not have been the candidate that came out of the Republican PAC in 2008 because the main issue at the time was immigration. Then they created, and McCain was the worst on immigration on the candidates, but then they had the 2007, 2008 housing bubble burst, and all of a sudden Mitt Romney switched the focus to economy, and it got John McCain off the hook on immigration. McCain goes in, he takes a dive. Then in 2012, Romney takes a dive. He crushed Barack Obama in the first debate, crushed him. Second debate, he comes out and he acts like he's semi-retarded. And so you saw them fall, and you saw Hillary fall to Donald Trump. Yeah. And so you say, and now when you look at everybody on the radio, it's still like, well, I love his policies. What fucking policies? What has Donald Trump achieved? And don't tell me pre-COVID, the economy was pretty good. Like, that is not an achievement. Like, what was his real achievement? And don't tell me Black unemployment was down. Like, that's my fucking issue that I voted for the guy for. Like, wow, more Black people are delivering DoorDash. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a great, what are the achievements? Right now, and nobody is focused on any of this. Trump launches Space Force 2 years ago. Every person, I never bought one, but a lot of my friends go out, they get the Space Force shirt. It's so cool, Space Force, Space Force. Well, at the same time, we look at Elon Musk, who's one of these weirdo AI, put an AI chip in your brain fucking nutcases, who should be locked in a fucking mental institution for the shit that he says. Instead, this guy gets $1 billion in government contracts, and nobody knows. He's launching all the fucking satellites for Donald Trump through Space Force that are running all this 5G shit that's connected to all the contact tracing bullshit that's coming out under Trump, of which Brad Parscale, Trump's former campaign manager and digital strategist, is part of a company called Funware. This company, Funware, is huge in the contact tracing business, and they play stock games every day with the penny stock of Funware. And then you go look at Peter Thiel, who was Donald Trump's only Silicon Valley supporter, the gay guy, who was Elon Musk's partner in the PayPal mafia, who owns a company called Palantir that was started by In-Q-Tel, which is the CIA's hedge fund. That's open. You go to their website and read about it. And now Palantir is getting contracts from Donald Trump to do all kinds of data analytics and things connected to COVID. So he's sitting there funding Elon Musk through Space Force, and he's funding Peter Thiel through Palantir. And if any cute jerk-off asshole tells me, oh, no, they're the good guys, and they're fucking gonna be planning the attack on the deep state to zap them with lasers, you can kiss my fucking asshole.
Well, I did tell you not to hold back, so I guess that one's on me. Tell me how you really think. I should have one of these little disclaimers. Every thought that comes from my guest is not necessarily but I agree with so much of what you said. It's just really hard for me. And it's funny because my wife lately has been, she's been saying it for a long time, too. She's like, and she supported him. We were all for him. It's hard. I guess what I can say is this. I have my own cognitive dissonance that I just can't quite break through, that he is not, that he was fully part of it. Like, there's still a part of me is like, I feel like I almost want to take the route that he just was an egomaniac that really thought he got in there because of how awesome he is, and he really just was the puppet that they were stringing along, and that he really wasn't behind it. And that's where I think that's where I'm falling to, because the other option with everything you just listed off is that he was either fully complicit or partially complicit in a lot of this stuff. When you list off these facts that nobody in our echo chamber wants to think about or talk about, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on. I know I'm going to catch a lot of heat for it. Thanks a lot, Dustin. But that's why I brought you on. Is because I wanted you have so much wealth of knowledge on this stuff, and you were a big time supporter of him. So it's not just like you were some never Trumper or you hated him.
No, I was never a never Trump. I wanted Donald Trump back in it was like 2012 when he gave his first CPAC speech. I knew that he at least would be entertaining, and I knew that everyone else was corrupt and owned. So I was willing to say, well, screw it, man. Let's put the reality star in there and shake things up. Now, I just want to say, SMF Veritas on your chat is saying, and Fox is compromised, so now all MSM is compromised and the enemy of the people. I just want to drop a little knowledge on you guys. Go look up the Global Engagement Center, GEC, that's under the State Department. Go look up the Smith-Mundt Act, of 1948, which was actually put into place the year after the CIA started in 1947. The CIA, the State Department, the GEC control all of our media. Donald Trump, the last 2 years, has been retweeting stuff, whether it be on Hong Kong or North Korea or Iran, from Voice of America, from Radio Free Europe, Radio Free Asia. Do you guys know what those are? Those are CIA-run media organizations that we use to spread propaganda around the country. Well, in 2012, Barack Obama was able to knock the Smith-Mundt Act out, which allowed the CIA to now propagandize U.S. citizens on U.S. soil under the guise that we had to be able to compete over satellite and internet now. So it was going to spread everywhere. But if you look at America's Voice News is a CIA front organization. All their news feed comes out of Voice of America. Everything that you're watching, except small independent shows like this, are 100% controlled, and anyone who ends up growing to a decent level that isn't, they throw them off social media. So it's all controlled. Most of these Twitter influencers that grow to 1 million you can't grow to 1 million subscribers if you're an honest person, and if you are putting out information that is a threat to the technocrats. I mean, they won't allow that. But I want to read you this quick, if you give me a second. I haven't read this in forever, so it might be stupid right now. I might quit. But I wrote this 1 year into Donald Trump's presidency for a show I was doing to throw out 3 scenarios. So we have the Bruce. So remember, this is in context of what I thought almost 3 years ago. The Bruce Wayne scenario. Trump is a stable genius, more genius or stable than any human on earth. He saw this shit for years in his line of work, but he never smoked, drank, or did drugs. So he watched these fuckers for years at his clubs, got them cocaine and hookers, and comped them rooms and rounds of golf. He knew he had no power because it was corrupt from top to bottom, from local law enforcement to presidents. So he waited until the time was right to go after them. Roger Stone, Steve Bannon, Jeff Sessions, Stephen Miller, certain white hat generals and spooks, etc., planned this out for many years. He actually beat Hillary fair and square. Team Trump has their eye on the prize and are not being distracted by all the mortars, grenades, and speed bumps being thrown at them. It looks like hell for us because he's not putting out every little fire they start, because he is laser focused on the end game and knows those are all distractions, false flags, psyops, and deep state antics. He has been feeding the press distractions. Stormy Daniels, Omarosa, Michael Cohen, Kellyanne Conway's husband, etc. the whole time. We are winning and they are losing. All the politicians stepping down, executives leaving companies, pedophiles being arrested, coups around the world like Saudi Arabia designed to cut off cabal funding, and ending deep state proxy threats against America like North Korea are all part of the plan. Sessions played the idiot while John Huber and Cody Highland were really working on something big, which they weren't. The meeting between Trump, Pence, Sessions, Rosenstein, and Mueller in the Oval Office with Bannon, admittedly outside the door, 18 hours before Mueller was appointed special prosecutor, was not them setting up Trump, but Trump and Sessions, in fact, laying down the law on Rosenstein and Mueller, and maybe even Pence, and turning them into gray hats to escape prosecution on Uranium One. Mueller is going to surprise us soon. I'm guessing during this lame duck session, with hundreds of indictments and perp walks of household names. Remember, this is called the Bruce Wayne scenario, which is Batman. Obama, Hillary, Brennan, Comey, all the way to Hollywood celebrities and big tech CEOs, and even Soros and Tom Steyer. Once that happens, POTUS goes full-blown campaign Trump. He immediately orders the wall to be funded by the Pentagon and built by the Army Corps of Engineers, and launches a deportation force to start rounding up and throwing out the 11 to 33 million illegal aliens. He orders a worldwide Muslim ban and outlaws Islam in America, naming it a cult, not a religion. This will take 2 years to complete. Everything else falls into place. People can live under Trump's restored American Republic for 4 full years and most likely demand America First ideology in our future federal candidates and our next president. We will have relative peace and prosperity for the next 25 to 50 years until the cabal rises once again. But the next generation is reminded of the Batman-like anti-hero, POTUS Donald John Trump, and has to reign in the cabal all over again. So that was scenario one. And guess what? None of that fucking shit happened.
Yes, it's true. It's
Now,
depressingly true. I will say, like I've been seeing in the chats from S&M or whatever, benefit, and this is, you're right. It's not like we can't say some good things didn't happen. We didn't get in any new wars. Okay, that's good, right?
Yes.
We can agree. But we also
but I would also argue in the stage of the industrial sort of technological evolution, we don't need to do ground wars anymore for these guys to enrich themselves. So I would say the days of those kind of wars are over. Now it's going to be governments mass wiping out their own people, and they don't have to do it by sending them into a rice paddy to shoot each other. Those days are over.
That's a good point. And even, I know you're of the assumption, because we've talked about this, that world wars and global wars don't exist because everyone's playing on the same page together, right? Give your thoughts.
Yeah, well, look, you have to be realistic about that as well. I look at these world leaders. I look at the, bureaucrats on the world stage, and then in our own government and state governments. I look at them as crime bosses with congressional pins and FBI badges. I mean, that's how I see these people. So there are different crime families. They work together, just like the 5 families in New York. They work together on some things. They fight each other for power on others. And that's very realistic. So the Soros and the Koch brothers will fight each other on some things, the Koch brother. But Soros and the Kochs work together on a lot. They've both been working behind the scenes on the prison reform that Donald Trump passed with Jared Kushner and, Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. Koch and Soros have been working on it forever. Soros, since 2008, has been pushing to turn the social media companies into public utilities. Well, guess who else has been pushing for that for a long time? Steve Bannon. What happens when the social media companies become public utilities? Then they are legalized monopolies sanctioned by the U.S. government, and no one can ever compete ever again. If you wanted to fix social media, which was all started with In-Q-Tel CIA money, but if you actually wanted to fix social media, you would stop Apple and Google from having exclusivity over the app stores. Because let's take Gab, for instance, which a lot of people thought was going to kick off in the beginning. And then it turned into basically like, a Nazi troll site, because Gab couldn't get an app in the store. And if you can't get an app in a app store any longer, you cannot compete in today's market. Yeah. Nobody goes to websites anymore. So if you really wanted to fight these guys, that's what you would do. Taking away their classification as a platform instead of a so they're a publisher, so you can sue them. To me, that's not even the solution, because once you say, okay, you are a publisher, now they can censor everyone and say, well, we have to because we don't want to get sued.
I brought the same question up to Robert Knorr, because I had the same exact position you just took right there. But he's, we both know Rob, he's a smart guy. His position was, yes, that is probably most likely what they're going to do. But what that'll end up doing, the benefit of that, of what it'll end up doing, is it will force those people that are on there and are on our side but haven't been banned yet or haven't been canceled yet, and so they're sticking around. It'll force them, once they start getting mass censored and to jump to another site, which will pull that momentum over to some other site, which I thought was a decent enough argument.
Yeah, if at the same time you could stop Google and Apple from having a monopoly over the app stores, then yes.
Yeah.
If you did that at the same time, I would say yes. But for instance, Parler, the other thing I want to warn the audience. Everybody sees the new shiny object, right? Like, oh, yeah. Parler, here's Parler. Everybody's talking about Parler. Here's Parler. Dan Bongino owns part of Parler. Here's Parler. You always have to look at who the owners and the investors are behind any of these tech companies you hear about. Because number one, let's say Steve and I were going to do a startup on a new tech platform. The number one goal is not to build a platform that everyone could speak. It's like if Steve and I are business guys, we build a platform because we have an exit strategy, which is to sell it to Google or sell it to Facebook. That's what every tech startup is trying to sell to Google, Facebook, Twitter, any of these big guys. So you got to look into that. And the other thing too is if it's a place where, let's say, like-minded people can share information, that's one thing. But if it's going to be marketed as like a free speech zone, but there's only conservatives, then it's just an echo chamber. And then it's very easy for the propagandists to dump Q-like stuff or other hopium type information in there. And then you're just sitting there wasting your time. Real World Witness was just asking, and I know this is all over the place. What do you think about Steve Pieczenik?
Yeah.
Steve Pieczenik is a CIA fucking trash. But said today on War Room with Owen Schroyer, claiming the ballots are all watermarked. They're using the art of war to watch the Democrats steal. Well, Steve Pieczenik also was pushing Q for a long time, then against Q. But the watermark thing is real. A friend of mine, Maria Albanese, is Citizen Pundit. She does some stuff with Mike Moore over at True Pundit. She pulled a bunch of documents last night because we were on the phone and sent them to me. The watermark thing is known in like the state of California. There was like a memo from the Secretary of State talking about the watermark ballots. To believe that there was a secret room run by the Department of Homeland Security, which, we know those are all very freedom-loving conservatives over there, that there's like a secret room where only honest people work, and they print secret ballots with watermarks on them that no one knows about, but the secret people in the secret room. And the Democrats don't get to know about that. They don't know. We're going to trick them. We're going to trick them. We're going to distribute hundreds of millions of ballots and trick them. Are you fucking shitting me? Fuck you, Steve Pieczenik, you fucking asshole.
Oh, and there goes any hope you guys had. And here's the thing, you might just like, Steven, why are you bringing a dickhead on like this? It's just smashing our hopes to the ground.
I'm a realist.
He is. And we actually go back and forth offline, and sometimes we don't agree on things, or I'm like, oh, dude, you're being negative. I don't know. But here's the thing about why I thought Dustin was very fitting right now is because I think we all need a little bit of a bitch slap, guys. We need to wake up. And I don't know exactly what our answer is, and Dustin doesn't either. He's a bit of we don't go to him for answers because he doesn't have any. He's got a lot of doom for us and gloom. There's not a lot of sunshine, but I think there's an answer somewhere. There has to be an upside in an answer, but we can't ever even hope to see that or come to know it if we don't wake up out of our slumber. And that's where I'm like, I played the thing about the plantation in the beginning, where we just are giving these two options and we're staying on the plantation, and we need to wake up and realize this shit's been rigged. If you don't get that the shit's rigged right now, and I know you're like, Trump's going to prevail. Okay, well, we're going to know in a couple months whether he prevails or not. And what if he doesn't prevail? What if this doesn't prevail as we're shaking out? I'm not saying I can see the future. Maybe it does. Maybe he works his way back in. Even if he works his way back in, you think the Russian collusion was a cloud hanging over his head that kept him from doing anything? What do you think this is going to do going into the next term? It's going to be a lame duck presidency anyways, is another thing that nobody's thinking about, even if he makes it in. But
I don't think Russia collusion was a cloud hanging over his head. I think it was a cloud hanging over our head. I think this whole thing right now that we're watching is part of a color revolution, which is what our CIA has used in other countries to overthrow certain regimes, to then go and 1 year ago, Dustin was actually pretty cool. Hey, Lewis, look. Look, do you see hope right now? If Donald Trump is powerful as we want to believe, what the fuck is Chris Wray? What the hell was Jeff Sessions? What is fat ass CIA Bill Barr doing running our DOJ? Why is Chris Wray, the FBI director, worth $50 million, a piece of shit, who was actually involved in negotiating on the same China deals that Hunter Biden was involved in? Chris Wray is a cover-up man. He's a piece of trash. And all he's done this whole time is go out and defame and slander fucking white people. And Donald Trump has allowed him to do it. Yeah, there's a huge clan of white supremacists. They're the danger to our freaking country. Are you fucking shitting me? Donald Trump, if he was real, would have taken Chris Wray over to the White House for a meeting and fired him through the fucking window right under the White House lawn. I mean, that is the shit. Like, time and time again, he continues to install senior executive service CIA trash into these positions. Now, you could sit there and say, well, he doesn't have a say. The Senate won't confirm these people into cabinet positions. Well, then he's useless to me anyway. So why? Look, you could believe he's the underdog. If anything, though, let's say Donald Trump really was on our side and really believed what he campaigned on in 2016 and really wanted to try to get it done, and really couldn't get a wall or get the money because, Nancy Pelosi and them were smarter than he was. Well, then all Donald Trump was a useful idiot. They were like, hey, you know what? The orange fucking asshole wants to run again. Let's prop him up. Oh, wait a minute. Hillary's campaign did that. Do you remember when all that leaked? That they called him the Pied Piper candidate, and they told Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski and all them to pump him up, and they had him on every day during the primary because she wanted to run against him instead of run against Ted Cruz.
But she wanted to run against him because she thought she'd beat him. Don't you think?
That's what we were supposed to believe. Then she started falling off her fucking walker and coughing all over herself. Give me a break. You're telling me the Democrat Party couldn't have built another Barack Obama? I mean, that's why this thing that we're watching right now is just color revolution trash. They put up, do you honestly believe that Joe Biden got 50% of the votes in this country? I swear, dude, I just spent the last 8 months, 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, in and out of grocery stores, talking to blue collar workers, cashiers, baggers, stock managers, grocery managers, deli managers, restaurant owners, fast food workers. And you talk to these people, they didn't even know who the fuck Joe Biden was. I talked to thousands of people, and they will have you believe today, Joe Biden is about to hit 80 million votes. Okay, so they have it where Trump is down by a couple percent. So you're going to tell me that they're going to tell us that 160, 170 million people voted in this election? Well, do you know, in the United States, there's only 220 million registered voters. In the 2016 election, only 65% voted. They're going to tell us by the time this is done that more people voted in the national election than are actually registered to fucking vote for the election. And that is how they throw it in your face. They're like, here, this is all fake right here. Shove it up your ass because we don't even care that you know that it's fake. And all this is going to do right now is it creates more divide, more chaos. Yeah. And what they're doing, we just spent the last 4 years lifting the veil on treason, sedition, corruption, and criminality. And because no one went to jail, we normalized treason, sedition, corruption, and criminality. Now we're going to normalize the fact that our elections are a fucking fraud. And remember, we look at it from the position of the right. So what were we promised over the last 4 years? That James Comey, John Brennan, Clapper, and the rest of them were going to go to jail for Spygate. But think about how deflated we were when they did. Well, think about what the people who perceived themselves on the left were fed. That Trump was a Russia agent and that they were going to take him down on his taxes. And they didn't get a win, right? So now you have this election. And once again, they're saying Biden's cheating, to us telling the other side that Trump is cheating, and in the end, no, America wins. But we end up more divided. We hate each other even more. And meantime, they're stealing money like crazy and making us walk around with masks. And I just heard today, I know you heard info, on the ground today, 2 different grocery managers from 2 different grocery chains who I talked to and give me information. They were feeding me info on supply chains and everything else while I was out there. They told me today they had conference calls with their district managers and they're prepping for another lockdown coming in the next month. They were told to start getting the stickers to put on the floors of the stores again. And then I talked to a lady today, lengthy conversation, who's a school teacher in a rural town that actually was one of the last ones to shut down in Tennessee. She said that they were just told they're getting ready and possibly going into another lockdown in the next few weeks. So,
yeah, well, that's what we got. We had that in Oregon. I was on. How I heard about it is I literally had called up because I am outside sales, so I was trying to make appointments for next week, and I finally having a hell of a time in this time doing that. And I finally get a hold of a guy, and I'm talking to the decision maker and trying to get an appointment set. And he's literally says to me, "Oh," he goes, "I don't know about next week. I'm watching Kate Brown on the news right now. It looks like we're going into another pause starting next week for 2 weeks." And I'm like, and he's like, "So I can't meet with you." And I'm like, "Son of," he's like, and so then he and I start talking, and we're like, I'm like, "Son of a bitch," and he's like, "I know, I feel the same way. This is the biggest bullshit," but it's like. Yeah, it's coming. A pause here in Oregon for the next 2 weeks, and then after that, they say it's going to end on the 25th, but then all of a sudden it's going to ramp into it's going to ramp into whatever, our dark winter that they've been setting us up for.
Oh yeah, it's cold. The virus spreads in the cold. And here's the other. They just published a study. I think was the fucking AP or some jerk off media organization put it out. This study came out of Boston that 1 in 5 grocery workers tested positive. Well, first of all, I'm not even lying to you guys. I've been in like every fucking grocery store in Nashville Metro over the last 8 months. Interview employees. Not one fucking employee got this shit during the whole COVID, number one. And number two, if they did and they're asymptomatic and they don't know they weren't tested, who the hell cares? And so when I was out on the ground, one of the things that we would laugh about, and this is the common sense of $10 an hour blue collar fucking grocery workers, we were all laughing about it, going, dude, we should all be dead according to what these assholes are telling us on the news.
Right. No, it's completely freaking unreal. And I mean, I kind of chuckle about it right now. One of the things I want to make very clear right now too, and I think this is, again, I want to like kind of slap people. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, Dustin. Do you love America?
Do I love them? Well, it depends. Which America are we talking about?
I mean,
what it is today, or what it was intended to be?
What it was intended to be. What it was in our minds, even if it was an illusion. The illusion that we've lived under up until this last year. Do you love America? The land of freedom.
Yeah, I love. Well, I love
the trick
original,
fucking question, Dustin.
I love the original intent of the United States of America, but you got to remember, it started as 13 colonies with 2.5 million people. Now we're 50 states, tons of territories, 900 military bases worldwide, 300 trillion in unfunded liabilities, 25 trillion in debt. So we are not the America that we started as. So it's hard to say, do I love it? And then the illusion that we lived under, before 2016. Well, I mean, that's been going on for a long time. I think we both know about 1913 under Woodrow Wilson, creating the IRS, creating the Federal Reserve, creating the income tax.
I'm not saying you don't love the corruption and the bullshit. I love none of that. I guess what my point is, people are getting on you and are butthurt because you are speaking out against Trump, when the Dustin I know loves freedom, loves small government, loves the Constitution for, the freedom of speech, your Second Amendment rights. These are the things that you're passionate about and that you love. Yes, you're going at Trump right now because we have fallen under, so many of us in our echo chamber have fallen under this, he's the savior. And there's no fucking, what's you're saying that you always say, and that I've kind of hijacked from you, but trust them, you follow the man, not the plan, or you follow the plan, not the man. Right.
Yeah, I voted for a plan, not a man. I mean, we cannot be a cult. Well, yeah, and I knew the dangers in 2016. I saw it firsthand going to 12 rallies, is that all of a sudden because conservatives were starved of a leader, were starved of someone who would follow through on policy, is that we started turning into a cult of personality on our side, which was what we criticized the left of doing under Barack Obama.
Right.
And what I would like to see come of this, and look, a lot of this has to do with cycle of civilizations. We are definitely in the collapse phase. This has to do with collapse of complex societies. That would happen regardless of Donald Trump. It's like a human. We have a life cycle. We're born, we live, we die. And it's happened to Rome, it's happened to Greece, it's happened to everyone. So that's inevitable. But what I'd like to see in the next phase, hopefully these next 4 years, is there are some people who consider themselves to be on the left who are also independent journalists, like Whitney Webb and Last American Vagabond, others that also uncover corruption and call out both the Democrats and the Republicans. And what I would hope to see is that eventually these independent media personalities start to unite. And I think everyone should focus on uniting under the banner of Jeffersonian classical liberalism, not identifying as Republican or Democrat or conservative or liberal. That the conservative liberal shit was so 2010s. You know, it's that era is over. I mean, for better or worse, Trump changed what the Republican Party was. I think actually by blowing it up, he did us a favor because it was worthless anyway. Yeah. So, but I think people need to start saying, you know, read the Constitution, and there's going to be things in there that you don't agree with necessarily, but you can't pick and choose. That's how we got to this point, is by picking and choosing. And I think you've got to focus on being a Jeffersonian classical liberal about freedom, about liberty, about prosperity, and stop focusing on all these little fires. I mean, look, the
that's the
technocrats
answer.
are our biggest problem.
You're saying you don't have an answer. That really is the answer. And it's nice. That's one of the most succinct ways I've heard it put, that I think I get verbose when I'm trying to explain what we need to, how we need to respond to this. But that really, truthfully, is the nice bow on top answer to, if we want to see America get back to being what it was supposed to be, or what the idea of America is that we loved, that's the answer right there.
Well, and that was one of my biggest faults with Trump when he was running, but I didn't say it, or, you know, because it, you know, there was a certain battle to be fought at that time, and you can't run on too many things. But I've never saw Trump as a big liberty freedom guy. Okay, I don't even know if I've ever heard him say the words, but I'm like, you know, so in that sense, you know, I don't see that coming out of him. Yeah. I mean, when he sat at the table in the gun debate and said, you know, when they're sitting there in the White House, and he said, "Take the guns first, due process second." I know. I mean, that just came out of his, and people said, "Oh, he's setting up the left." I'm like, dude, what are we playing? Fucking Scooby-Doo here? Like, at the end of the day, he's going to pull off his thing, and he's actually going to be the real Trump. Be like,
I would have got away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
Yeah. I'm like, so, I mean, come on. Everything isn't Scooby-Doo. I mean, you know, the Q thing was an interesting phenomenon, but it started in October 2017. I monitored it for a few months, and on a podcast I used to be on all the time, I had openly said, I think it's a psyop designed to lull conservatives to sleep. And that's what it is. That's what it was. It lulled us to sleep because we thought what I read before, the Bruce Wayne scenario that I wrote, was that magically, like, Trump had a secret plan. What I haven't seen, and I don't know, let's see what your audience says, because if you want to challenge me, prove me wrong. What I always worried about with Trump was he was surrounded by no one who was from real America and who was on our side. And that is proven if you believe that all those people like John Kelly and Rex Tillerson, everybody turned against him. Well, then was he the worst person at hiring people and vetting people ever? Because how did he end up being surrounded by the very deep staters that he was supposedly going to take out and drain? Mm-hmm. And it's happened time and time and time and time again. So where is this secret white hat team? Mm-hmm. Where are the secret white hats? I mean, somebody in here said the right thing, that Bill Barr was CIA and part of Iran-Contra. Yeah, Bill Barr actually was the attorney who advised George H.W. Bush to pardon all the guys in Iran-Contra. Bill Barr is dirty as hell. So he's just the leader of the protection racket. On day one, when Trump announced Bill Barr, and I used to have a big Twitter account, I looked up his resume. Who's Bill Barr? I go, the guy was CIA at his first job out of college. He was a China analyst for the CIA. Once CIA, always CIA. And I am not a fan of the CIA. I think the only way you have a chance at freeing America is you need to get rid of the CIA. Like Trump should have padlocked the door to the CIA.
But he'd have been killed in a heartbeat. He would have been JFK'd in a heartbeat if he did that.
Yeah, but I remember saying to you at the beginning of COVID, when you had some fears that we were opening ourselves up, to an EMP attack or China or Russia. But I've always said, I don't fear any other country. I don't fear North Korea. I don't fear China. I don't fear Russia. I don't fear Iran. I think a lot of these are invention boogeymen created by our own government. I only fear my own government. Right now, is a Russian or a Chinese guy going to kick my door in right here and arrest me? No. But if I owe taxes to the United States government, I have a very fear that they will kick my door in. And they will take my house. They will take my money. Those are the only people that I fear is the United States government. I do not fear any other country whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because if we have the technology and the weapons that we claim to have, Russia, China, or any of these other people are not a threat to us at all. Yeah. And if China was the one who released, see, that was the other part, that Trump went along with that narrative and helped push that narrative. That China released it, China released it, China released it. Well, if China fucking released it, why didn't Trump nuke their fucking ass immediately? Right. If China released it, Donald Trump should have dropped a fucking Ebola bomb on top of their country immediately and then live streamed all their people being eaten alive by Ebola. Wouldn't you say that if China actually did it and we had proof that China did it?
That just got me banned on YouTube. I'm just kidding.
No, I'm just saying, if China really did it, do you not think that Donald Trump, as this tough guy we believe, should have done that immediately as retaliation?
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break.
Yeah. No, I know. And that was one of the hard things for me to that also pointed it out that, of course, Trump's not going to come out and say that. I really think that I still kind of think to this day, there's enough plausible deniability. And maybe it goes to your argument where since they're both working together, ultimately behind all the closed doors, it was jointly released and plausible deniability on both sides. But I was like, it was pretty suspicious that we had, the military games going on over there, right, when all this stuff kicked off, right? Which, again, gives that right where it happened. It gives the plausible deniability that that's either one of them could have been released by there. But we know this shit was patented now, the coronavirus with Fauci and being patented and all this good stuff.
Yeah, and everyone was saying, it was the Democrats that released it to rig the election against Trump. It was happening worldwide. I'm sure all of your audience has seen Event 201. Have you seen Clade X? Have you read about Crimson? This was all prepped and prepared for. Done playing around says, and what, have a nuclear war? No. So you're telling me that if China, as Trump has alluded to, released this virus on us, did not tell us, and destroyed our economy, fucking put people, dude, do you know how many people I've met and what I've had, and what I had to do the last 8 months of my life, how many people I've met, from wealthy people all the way down whose lives have been destroyed, whose businesses have been destroyed. There are real people out there whose lives are fucking destroyed. If China did that, Trump should have dropped the nuke on them. I'm not kidding. If they released, first off, this is why I know it's not real. That's why I'm putting this out there. Because how many people did it kill? Nothing. We know the numbers were fixed anyway. And if no one ever mentioned the name COVID-19, I'd be saying to Steve, Steve, how's your great Aunt Emma doing that I met? You'd go, man, she got the flu and ended up dying of pneumonia in the hospital. She was just old. That's what everyone would have been saying. There would have been no COVID-19. It's such bullshit. That's why this thing about China releasing this all over is not real, because if China did it and it spread to every other country, all of the countries would have formed the anti-China coalition and bombed the fucking shit out of China. And if it is China, then who authorized it? Xi Jinping, right? The fucking goddamn emperor of China, the dictator. And with all the technology we have, we could file a missile right up his fucking dick hole while he's taking a piss and only kill him. So just think about how stupid the narrative is that China created this. Yes, we retaliated in no way. Oh, you know how we retaliated? Trump was real tough. He put a 0.25% tariff on fucking steel. That'll show him. Come on.
Flying a missile up his dick hole. I'm clipping that one for later.
But see, I try to boil things down to common sense. In my own life, I try to weigh these pros and cons column and decide if stuff is a net negative or a net positive. And I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm just trying to show you through common sense. Like, stop believing there's all this art of war and QAnon shit going on, because come on, man. I mean, I sound like Biden. Come on, man. Well, be realistic about this. If it was China, we would have retaliated. If it was the Democrats who plotted this to take out Trump, why was it worldwide?
Yeah.
And why was there Event 201? And why was there Crimson? And why was there Clade X?
So let me ask you this question. What happens if Donald Trump takes us to the court? WWE even scenario here, because that's what I've been talking to my audience about the last several nights. As I've been like, this has all been planned, guys. This is all, you can go back to the transition. It's funny because I said what I exactly came up with the other night is the Transition Integrity Project is to this election as Event 201 was to the pandemic. I mean, it's 100%. Like 100%. It's playing out exactly like Transition Integrity Project said. So if, going on your theory, Trump is an agent just to help separate and cause division in the country, do you think he pulls this out at the end and actually wins the election just so that it causes crazy amount of division within the company, the A-bomb on our, because ultimately they want to bring, America needs to be brought down so that the Great Reset and Agenda 2030 can be fully implemented. You can't have that with America being a strong independent nation. So we got to bring America to its knees. We want that, worldwide communism and or socialism, communism globally, right? That's ultimately, we know they want to chip everybody, vaccinate everybody, and get everybody under one umbrella of control. So knowing that that's what they want, right? Do you think he wins in the end and pulls us out, or how do you think it? Or do you think there's more carnage if he pulls it out and wins, right? And then it really just blows the country up, or if Biden, this joke of an election, Biden actually does make it all the way through and get elected? What's your thought?
Yeah, well, that's how I try to look at things, and that's what I ask everybody who's always in the know. Like, well, you have to figure out what their end goal is, right? So they've always talked about population reduction, from Bill Gates and the others. So you have to imagine that is in their playbook. They've been building their AI. A lot of people believe they collect data on us from social media to our phones and everything so that they could better serve you ads. That's the bullshit that they fed you for years. It's really all the data they've been putting into their systems as they're doing machine learning and building their AI. Their AI is going to be like the replacement for God, is basically what they're going to try to do with that. So right now in this country, I think it depends on what their next move is. They put Trump in if they want to be able to activate BLM and Antifa in the streets to finish burning down cities. If Biden ends up getting installed, I don't think they actually get anything out of it, because the one thing, if I was sitting at the cabal table, I'd be saying is conservatives, patriots, all these, they're fucking pussies, and they're never going to revolt against us. So even if we openly steal it against Trump, they won't revolt in the streets. So we'd benefit more to put Trump back in and then activate our proxy armies, Antifa, BLM, and all that other stuff. So that's one of the things I think they know. After doing COVID, they know we are not going to revolt. And if I were a Soros, if I were a Tom Steyer, if I were a John Brennan, if I were these guys, there's only two things that I would fear at that level. One is if I knew that the people would actually come to my mansion, drag me out, and Muammar Gaddafi me on my front lawn, right? So that's why you give people bread in circuses to keep them calm. And the other, like the slave video you played in the beginning, or two, is that one of the other crime bosses decides they're going to take me out. So if you take Rod Blagojevich years ago, he was all tied up with Obama and he was trying to sell this Senate seat. Well, why did Rod Blagojevich go to prison? Not because he was corrupt, because he was a cocky son of a bitch. And somebody said, dude, you haven't passed the VIG up to the right people, or we're going to take that seat. You don't own it. And he goes, fuck you. I'm Rod Blagojevich. They go, yeah, right. And they lock him in prison. So I don't believe that it just depends. If they need to activate the proxy armies and get more chaos going, then they install Trump. If they want to, I don't know what purpose Biden serves, because he would probably go in and then they'd put Camilla, but who the fuck cares? I mean, at that point, I look, I'm seeing people in the grocery stores, old people, I talk to everybody. And I'm like, what's going to happen? Oh, Biden, and it'll be Camilla, and then what? Oh, then we got to focus on 2024. It's like, dude, your fucking country's gone. They just openly showed you corruption for 4 years, and then they just showed you elections are bullshit. And they literally said to you, hey, dickheads, this is a banana republic, not a constitutional republic. Fuck you. There's nothing you're going to do about it. And that's where we are right now. What role did the Epstein element play in power? Well, look, somebody's at rational wrong thing.
Yeah, it's rational.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, Epstein was very real, and that network was very real. That was CIA and Mossad for sure. And that was at the time when real world blackmail actually worked. So you would set somebody up. Well, I mean, whether they're a child molester to begin with, or you set them up at a party, get them drunk. You have a girl come in and looks like she's 18, she's really 14, and you trap the guy, and then you go, hey man, we own you for life, and you're our congressman for life, and you're going to do what we tell you. That shit is all, and that goes for CEOs, media people, entertainers. But see, I believe they took that network down because that kind of stuff is no longer needed. In the digital age, they can pull data off your phone, whether real or not, or make you look like a horrible person.
Fakes. Yeah,
deep fake videos. So they don't need that anymore. And also because they've normalized deviancy and pedophilia and everything, that like nowadays, if you got caught as one, you could run as a Democrat for office. I mean, they'd be like, wow, that's all. You cut your kid's penis off? That's awesome. You're going to be the president. But see here, let me give you the, I'm going to just give you the, I'm not going to read the middle scenario, which was called the clusterfuck, but let me give you the snake scenario. So you had the Bruce Wayne scenario earlier. If you guys just came in, you can go back and listen. That was like the Q theory. And again, this is written, I wrote this 3 years ago. Let's see what the snake scenario now, if I read it, sounds like in context to today. The snake scenario. Everything we willingly ignored about candidate Donald Trump should not have been ignored. Trump borrowed hundreds of millions of dollars from George Soros, and Soros forgave that loan. That is true. And also, Jared Kushner still has an open line of credit of $250 million from Soros. Bill and Hillary Clinton attended his wedding to Melania. True. Over the years, he handed out millions of dollars to Democrat candidates. True. His daughter, Ivanka Trump, was very close friends with Chelsea Clinton. True. He held a public friendship with convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein and even praised Epstein for their shared desire of younger girls. True. They are creepy photos of him and his daughter, Ivanka, all over the internet. True. He purchased and ran international beauty pageants. True. He was and still is tied into Hollywood through his friend and agent, Ari Emanuel, the brother of Rahm Emanuel. True. And I've done research over the years. Ari Emanuel, who runs basically William Morris Endeavor, the largest agency, happens to also be the agent of Colin Kaepernick and many other celebrities that Donald Trump has public feuds with, by the way, all managed by the same agent. Barack Obama's former chief of staff, he turned the Obama birther movement into a clown show and then accepted Obama's fake birth certificate as reality. True. All of these red flags were flags we were willing to ignore. Trump was chosen to win. Hillary was not. That's why the cabal didn't cheat and force Hillary upon us. Trump's job is to unveil and push all the corruption, criminality, treason, sedition, mental illness, propaganda news, voter fraud. This is 3 years ago. Voter fraud, open borders, the public merger of the uniparty, which we're seeing, and mass chaos into the light. Nothing will be done about it. The people will become numb to it. It will be normalized, and eventually the people will accept it. We're almost there. In the meantime, Trump fools the silent majority into speaking up, putting on red MAGA caps and outing themselves as conservatives who still believe in the Constitution. They will be banned from the internet. Dude, this is 3 years ago.
Dude, and did you hear what AOC said today?
What?
You didn't hear this? So pause right there.
No.
Pause with what you just said right there. I got to bring this up. I was going to talk about this. Hang on. Where's it at? Oh, shit. Hang on here. Give me 1 second right here. Oh, check this out. Let me switch this over here to... Oh, damn it. Hang on. Keep your spot. I want you to continue reading, but check this out. So AOC says this: Democrats never Trumpers compiling list of Trump supporters in case they try to deny complicity in the future. Democrats and conservative critics of Donald Trump have begun creating blacklists for his staff and supporters, apparently hoping to shun them from polite society as divisions grow wider and contentious in the election.
Wow.
Can you believe that shit?
Yeah.
Oh, it's exactly that. I didn't. That's crazy though to me. I was actually. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, yeah, they will be banned from the internet. They will lose their jobs, and any side revenue will be turned off by canceling their payment gateways and ability to make digital transactions. Eventually, they will be rendered a non-threat to the cabal, and if they continue to fight that back, they will be strategically picked off by a Mueller-like legal hit squad, the IRS, or by harsher means like COVID. Where Barack Obama failed, Trump will succeed. He is currently setting the stage for decent conservatives to cheer on government martial law to put an end to the government lawlessness. Now, that will happen if they install Trump and BLM is in the streets. That's next, big time martial law. Some conservatives are already calling for martial law thanks to QAnon, a cabal-controlled, Trump-approved deep state psyop designed and deployed to lull conservatives to sleep and get them to blindly cheerlead for the NSA and the military-industrial complex. The dystopian social score system we see in China and Venezuela is basically here already. In the coming months, it will become even more draconian. Trump was recruited by the deep state CIA, an international billionaire playboy with a fleet of planes who conducts business all around the world. He's the perfect candidate for a global spy. Trump is an extension of Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama. He's the very snake he warned us about in his favorite campaign poem. He has now bitten our thigh. Yes, America, we have all been trumped. Now, if you take those two from 3 years ago, that one is closer to what we're seeing today than the first one I read, which was Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. Damn it.
Those stories are for sale. I'll sell those rights to you.
I've got them, dude. I've got them on the stream, bro. By the way, there's no... So I'm going to come back and... Yeah, no, man. That is some serious... It's, you know, I have to... You always throw so much information that I have to mull it over and think about it a little bit, you know?
I know.
And some of it, it's like I said, my cognitive dissonance is hard for me to completely be like, yeah, he's right. But... I every day I feel like I get closer to just realizing, and here's the thing I keep coming back to. When we're saying these things, it's not because we just hate Trump to hate Trump. It's because we love fucking freedom. We believe in liberty. We believe in these things that we're supposed to have. And when the veil gets pulled back, the light bulb goes off to say, we don't really have those. And we're getting fucking shafted right now. We get angry, and we have to be able to speak out and say this stuff. And I don't know, man. I'm going through a season where I am really questioning so much stuff, and this kind of stuff you talked about tonight is really where this channel's headed. This is the kind of stuff I want to focus on. You know,
well, look, and it's to stir the pot and to get people to start thinking outside of the echo chamber. And look, at the end of the day, if Donald Trump is good or Donald Trump is bad, does it matter? Does it really matter? I mean, look at where we were in 2016 and look at where we are today, both in your personal life and as a country. And ask yourself, even before 2016, we did not openly have 9-year-old boys dressed up as girls dancing on Good Morning America. We did not openly talk about post-birth abortion. We did not openly talk about, cutting kids' genitals off. I mean, that we didn't have that even 4 years ago. So you have to say our culture, and as you brought up Andrew Breitbart, politics is downstream from culture. Now you have generations, right, of people who've been indoctrinated through the public education system, through the universities that have been taken over by the cultural Marxists. So now when you have a 40-year-old or younger in a classroom teaching Common Core bullshit propaganda to kids, that teacher grew up in that system. So now we have generations that are propagandized to hate our country, to hate the color of their own skin. They make white people have guilt and hate themselves. They make black people believe they're victims forever. So when you look at that, how do you come out of that? And even if you take what some people want to call the greatest generation, the World War II generation, I call them pieces of shit, to be honest. I've been doing that for 15 years. What did the World War II generation give us? Well, they came home from a war and they got talked into Social Security, the biggest socialized system in our country, where the government told you they're going to manage your retirement. That led into Medicare, Medicaid, all these other programs. That all happened under the greatest generation, who then let their kids turn into fucking hippies. And then we ended up with the baby boomers and what became like my parents. I mean, so it's just, this is a cycle of civilization, and we're on the downward spiral now. And it doesn't matter whether Trump's president or not. He's not going to undo this. It can't be undone at this point.
Yeah. Wow.
But I would say, but what I would say on the honest solution to this, if you want to pay attention to politics or you want to be in the independent media game, is like I said, I think people have to start thinking and reading about Jeffersonian classical liberalism. I think if you find honest, independent reporters that are uncovering corruption and talking about this, you should reach across that aisle, even though one identifies more as left and one more as right. Because what do those words even mean anymore today?
Yeah.
If we're for freedom and liberty and against corruption, we should be working together. Yeah. But the biggest thing I think people need to focus on, because eventually I think you're going to see this anyway, there will be real secession movements, but I think it's stuff like I've been trying to work on, I know you're working on, is getting yourself to a place where you can live in a more rural area, in a place where there's plenty around Tennessee, and that's kind of what's driven me to do this, being on the road and finding all these great 8, 9, 10 acre farms, and I'm going, that's where I've got to get to. And I know you've been talking about it. I think personally, that's what people should be focused on, is maybe not being on the internet so much, and start figuring out how to make yourself some extra money and get yourself to a safer place. Because the day that they come to burn your farm down, okay, it's pretty much the end. You can have all the guns in the world you want, but if 10 Antifa proxy army thugs show up, you can't take them all out. You're going to die. But you're safer there than you are in the suburbs. You're definitely safer there than you are in a city. So I think it's about building up, your personal protection and personal freedom first. Yeah, and hopefully finding an area where you can start to congregate with more like-minded people, and then start to build your own community that says to the government, whether it be the state or whether it be the federal, fuck you. I mean, you know what happens? They come and take out your compound. But I think if you want to survive, which is all it is to be a human, is survival, that is, to me, the more realistic approach.
No, and that's so funny. And we'll kind of wrap it up on that thought, because that's exactly where I'm at and my wife are at. And we're like, we've said, even if it's going to, I've told her, it doesn't matter where you go. It's going to, if it keeps going this way, it's going to go everywhere. But for us, it's like, if we can get an extra 5 or 10 years before it really affects us hard, living out in the boonies and around a bunch of other rednecks and hicks, that are like America, then that's what, then we choose that option. You know what I mean? Because that at least gives you a little more time as a family and to be together. So that's exactly where.
That's a great comment to end on. Pam M. We could learn a lot from the Amish, which is which is actually true, because everybody in here now is talking about them, trying to force the digital money, taking out paper currency, which, look, even paper currency, a lot of us were against before this, because it's a fiat currency. It's run by the Federal Reserve anyway. I mean, at the end of the day, it should get back to communities where people are actually, the transactions are bartering. Yeah. People should be mainly bartering with each other. And then the government wants a cut of that too, but fuck them, man. I mean, if you're going to play inside their system, I think, as I tell everyone now, what you're seeing around you is our reality. It is the new normal. They told us this 8 months ago in the grocery store. Welcome to your new normal. Put on your mask and stand 6 feet away from each other, and do not look each other in the eye, or you will turn to stone. I mean, they told us that it was the new normal. They did not hide it.
Yeah.
So the best you can do in this situation, if you need income, is don't fuck up your job right now. You got to look at the movie The Matrix, and you are navigating in the Matrix. So you're Neo, you're Morpheus, you're Trinity, plugging yourself in and going into the Matrix. That's where we are. And you have to navigate it, kind of keep your head down until you can escape, because I've seen it in grocery stores for the last 8 months. Dude, there is no one, no majority, no even tiny amount of people that are going to revolt and fight back. Even in my town, in 2016, voted 72% for Trump. It's a very conservative town. I knew we were screwed at the beginning of COVID when people were wearing Trump hats, CAG hats, MAGA hats with a fucking mask on. I was like, oh my God, how do you wear a Keep America Great while you're walking around with a mask? So the thing is, there's not going to be any kind of big revolt, and you don't have a lot of real allies. So you got to keep your head down and navigate the situation now to start building your plan to get yourself to a safer space, to get your family to a safer space. And then, we start to figure out all of these other things. Like I said, I believe a secession movement is in the horizon anyway. I don't know if it's going to be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but eventually the United States is going to collapse under its own weight because the systems that run it are too complex. So once they can't manage those systems, military, banking, technology, then it will collapse and it's going to start breaking up. And that's all going to be based on real natural resources. Because once it gets back to escaping the industrial technological era that we live in, it's going to get back to water and shelter and things like that. I mean, that's part of the problem we're in today, is that as humans, technology has advanced so quickly that we move so far away from what our DNA wiring actually is, which is like hunting, gathering, protecting your family, shelter, food, water. And we've now created a society where we're so far away from what we're supposed to be doing because we're on the phones and everything else that you see depression and alcoholism and all these other things occur. So that's my real solution. I don't think the solution comes from who you put in as president.
Well, Dustin, you didn't disappoint with what I knew you were going to bring. And I appreciate you coming and hanging out. Where can people find you at if they want to kill you and or follow you? Are you doing Freedom Force TV? No, nothing like that? No?
You can't find me anywhere anymore. I'm hiding.
Okay. Well, you can, for the momentary time, find best place to find me is SJG Perspective. Go there and subscribe, and you can follow me on the sites. But yeah, Dustin's right, man. There's a lot of truth in everything you said. You said a lot of stuff, man, and a lot of your wealth of knowledge on a lot of this under this black door stuff, this Black Mirror type stuff. And that's why I wanted to bring you on. And you're also going to shake my echo chamber, and that's also why I wanted to bring you on. So I'm glad you came on, dude. And I will have to have you on again. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Any final words to the audience before we say goodnight?
No, not really. I mean, look, I would just, like I said, I'll just end with that, man. I mean, this is your new normal, and sadly, you've got to navigate it the best you can. I mean, with some of these issues, like with the election and everything, we don't have any control. I think there's script writers who put this stuff together. So try to figure out where they're going so that you can navigate around that, for the protection of yourself and your own family until we come up with a better plan. I think everyone is searching for answers, whether you go back to the days of if you were a Glenn Beck listener in his prime or any of these other people you listen to now. And we don't have answers because we would have won if we did.
Yeah.
So I say that the key is to protect yourself and your family is the number one concern. At the end of the day, that's really your only concern. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate everyone hanging out for as long as you did. We had a good crowd in here. Again, thank you, Dustin, for coming on, dude. And when you're ready and wanting to come back on, I will. You're more than welcome to come hang out, dude, anytime. So we'll talk offline, I'm sure.
I know now too. Like you got a bunch of good guests lined up from one of our chat. Like you have Dan Golvach coming on.
Dan Golvach is coming on. Timothy, I'll get Timothy Shia in here again soon. Maria usually only goes on with Mike because she's so busy, but I'm still bugging her that I can get her on here.
Oh my God! If you want to be blackpilled to death, you gotta have Maria. Yeah, I've known Maria a couple of years, and it's actually she's been a blessing too. Because during this whole COVID thing, like I said, I'm on the road working. I'm not. I listen to conservative talk to hear what the propagandists are feeding us, but she's always researching. She's addicted. She just can't. She's always telling me like, "That's it. I'm done. I'm only focusing on my grandkids. And I'm going to live out my life happy as I possibly can." And then like 2 days later, she said, "Look what I found on this tech firm, on this thing."
Hey, do you think if I had a structured section, because I know he's so busy, right? But like if I was like, hey, I want to get him on for 20 minutes and have some set questions I want to talk to him about. I know he won't sit on here with me for an hour, but do you think you could line me up with Mike, get Mike Moore to come on for a show?
I should be talking to him tomorrow. Yeah, because there might be. I mean, him and I have been going back and forth for a month or two about the possibility of some things he's trying to do. Now, unfortunately, he lost his True Pundit Twitter about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and then they suspended his real big one, his Thomas Paine Twitter. So he doesn't know if he's getting that back. His podcast, which is everywhere, a Thomas Paine podcast, has been doing really well, but he also, like everybody, is trying, in his personal life, is trying to figure out what he's going to do. Yeah. And then at the same time, trying to figure out if he wants to try to grow out the content or what direction he's going to go in. Because like everyone, you've got, man, you got to balance your personal finances with your ability to do this. And also be able to get, because he likes putting out stuff the same as this, get people thinking. And if you could provide them with intel and information that help them navigate their own life, then he feels like he's doing a good thing. But yeah, he probably will. I know this week he was a little pissed about the election stuff and was trying to take a day.
Well, just talk to him for me. Say, hey, I got a friend and he's got a small channel. It wouldn't be huge exposure for him, but I would love, I got subscribed to his podcast through you and Maria, right? And man, I have it on there. I listen to it every day. I mean, the stuff he brought out about Christopher Wray last week or a few days ago, how Wray's law firm was working for Rosneft, the Russian oil company that was sitting across the table from who else? And I shared this with my audience. But Biden, right? So exactly. Hunter Biden was representing CEFC, the China energy company, when they were all this Hunter Biden stuff that came out on the laptops and whatnot with all the corruptions. So he was representing the China energy company, right? Being his attorney for them. Meanwhile, I forget the name of his law firm, the law firm who worked for Liberty and something, I think it is, but Christopher Wray, before he was our FBI douchebag, he's worth $20 million. So why does a guy worth $20 million go and work for the fucking FBI? But anyway, it's a side story. His law firm was representing Rosneft that was negotiating with CEFC with Hunter Biden on the other side of the table. That should be huge fucking news, and no one's talking about that.
No. It's look, it was like with James Comey. I mean, James Comey, see, these senior executive service guys, there's basically a list of like 700 of them, and they're the ones who are like allowed to be cabinet members. So if you let's say you magically won the presidency and you're like, oh, I need to get a tough FBI director. They're like, here, Steve, here's your choice. You could pick him or him. Which one do you? And then these guys float in and out of the private sector and the public sector. So somebody like James Comey does his dirty work, does his cover-up shit, then they move him over to, say, the board of Lockheed Martin while they're the number 2 donor to the Clinton Foundation and pay him $6 million to sit on the board and do nothing. And then they float him over to HSBC Bank. I mean, and this is the scam. This is
Yeah.
how these guys do it. So they go into government, do their dirty work, float them out, pay them off, move them back in. Then they launder money through the book deals. They launder money through the GoFundMe accounts. They launder money through their fake little podcasts that nobody listens to. They launder money all over the place. And then even a lot of these fucking general jerk-offs, they float those guys in. So many of these, like, what was his? I can't even remember all these dickheads. Mike Rogers, right? He was supposed to be the hero, Admiral Mike Rogers of the NSA, the hero that tipped off Trump to the spying. These jerk-offs get out of the military, like 4-star generals, and they go sit on the boards of these Israeli hedge funds where they pay them like $15 million a year. Oh, gee, I wonder why they're doing that. Oh, gee, it's not because of all the secrets they have. Gee, it's not because Israel is like pushing. I'm like, give me a break, man.
Yeah.
It is crazy. I think it was Lee Stranahan who had the show on Sputnik that was saying one time these general assholes there should be a law that they have to wear NASCAR jackets with all their corporate military industrial complex sponsors. And while they're on Fox News talking some shit about technology or some new weapon, they should have a ticker tape at the bottom showing the stock prices going up and down of all the companies that they're fucking talking about.
Yeah, no, it's so funny. All right, I'll end up in divorce court if I don't get inside and say goodnight to my wife. But hey, let's talk. I'll talk to you. I'm gonna hang up when we get goodbye, but I'll shoot you some text, right? But let's plan for you to come back on again, dude. I really enjoyed this. I got a lot of good feedback here in the chat too, for the most part. And by the end of it, they liked you. And no, this was great, dude. I appreciate it. So I think that's it, guys. I'm gonna do another formal stream on Monday. I might do one tomorrow too, with my buddy Rational. So. Again, go to SJG Perspective. My schedule's on there now. I'm trying to stick to it. You can follow me. I have a podcast on Anchor FM now too, where I'm uploading these. And I appreciate everyone that hung out. And again, Dustin, thank you, dude. And we'll talk soon. I'll chat with you here offline with our text. But thanks, man, for coming on. And I think that's about it. So until next time, it is SJG Perspective, and we'll talk to you later. Without fear or animus, we'll talk to you. See ya. Bye. Hang on one second, Dustin.